I truly believed I was losing my mind until the doctor looked me in the eye and said I was being poisoned one pill at a time. The person hand-feeding me that toxicity was the very woman who called me Mom. When the lab results came back, the silence in the exam room was heavy enough to crush her. She stood there, frozen. And I finally realized she never wanted to care for me. She wanted to erase me. My name is Margaret Holston. Though most people in this quiet coastal town just outside Savannah know me as Maggie, at 58 years old, I never expected to feel like a prisoner in my own home, especially not a home that smells of salt air and blooming magnolias. I was supposed to be recovering. The doctors called my heart surgery minor, a routine fix for a rhythm that had gone slightly off beat. But the recovery felt like dragging a heavy anchor through sand. That was when my son, Evan, stepped in. At 33, Evan had always been distant, buried in his finance career in Atlanta. But suddenly, he was here, standing on my porch with his wife, Brianna. Brianna was 31, beautiful in a sharp, manicured way, and she moved into my guest room with an eagerness that unsettled me. She called it an act of love. She claimed they just wanted to help me get back on my feet. "We just want to make sure you're okay." "Mom?" Evan had said, kissing my cheek. "You shouldn't be alone right now." It sounded sweet. It sounded dutiful. But within a week, the house did not feel like mine anymore. Brianna took over the kitchen, the cleaning, and most importantly, my medication schedule. She was soft-spoken, her voice like syrup, but her control was absolute. The trouble started in the mornings. I would wake up feeling decent, maybe a little stiff, but clear-headed. Then Brianna would appear with a glass of water and my little blue pill on a ceramic saucer. I took it because I was supposed to. I took it because I trusted her. But 20 minutes later, the world would tilt. My heart, which was supposed to be healing, would hammer against my ribs like a trapped bird. My memory felt shredded. I would lose hours of the day, sitting in my armchair, staring at the wall, unable to form a coherent thought. "You look tired." "Mom," Brianna would say, her eyes wide with mock concern. "Why don't you just rest one Tuesday? She made a new rule." I found her in the hallway, locking the vintage oak medicine cabinet where I kept my prescriptions. "What are you doing?" I asked. She dropped the key into her pocket and smiled. "Oh, Maggie. I noticed you were a little confused about your dosage yesterday. I think it's safer if I manage this. We don't want any accidents." It made logical sense. But it felt like a violation. She was treating me like a toddler. I wanted to argue, but the fog in my head was so thick I could barely string the sentence together. The next morning, I did not swallow the pill immediately. When she turned to fill the coffee pot, I palmed it. I waited until she left the room to examine it under the harsh light of the reading lamp. It looked correct. It was the right shape and the right shade of blue. But when I brought it close to my nose, there was a faint, sickly, sweet scent that did not belong there. The coating looked too shiny, almost wet. I did not take it that day. I flushed it down the toilet and wrote down exactly how I felt in a small notebook I hid inside my pillowcase. That day, my head remained clear. The surveillance came next. Evan installed a sleek white camera in the corner of the living room. "It's for your safety," he insisted when I protested. "You've been forgetting things." "Mum, if you fall, we need to know." I noticed the lens was not pointed at the floor where I might fall. It was angled directly at the medicine cabinet. The breaking point happened during a dinner with the Millers, my neighbours of 20 years. We were eating pot roast, and I was feeling sharp because I had skipped the morning dose again. Maggie. "How is the recovery?" Susan Miller asked kindly. Before I could answer, Brianna sighed loud enough for the table to hear. "It's been hard. She gets so confused lately. Sometimes she doesn't even know what day it is. It's heartbreaking to watch." I saw the pity in Susan's eyes. They were painting a picture of a senile old woman, and I was sitting right there, perfectly lucid, watching them frame me. The next afternoon, while Evan was on a conference call and Brianna was at the grocery store, I made a call. I did not call the new specialist Evan had recommended. I called Dr. Nolan Mercer, my cardiologist for 15 years. "I need to see you." I whispered into the receiver. "Tomorrow. Please don't put it in the digital system where my family can see." Now. I stood in my bedroom, listening to the sound of Brianna's car pulling into the driveway. My heart was pounding, not from illness, but from adrenaline. I reached into the hidden stash I had accumulated over 3 days and pulled out one of the altered pills. I wrapped it in a tissue and shoved it deep into the pocket of my coat. I did not know if I was holding the evidence that would save my life, or if I was simply an old woman descending into paranoia. But as the front door opened and I heard Brianna's voice call out, "Mom, I'm home," I knew one thing for certain. I was done sleeping. Dr. Nolan Mercer did not look up from his clipboard for a long time. The silence in the examination room was punctuated only by the hum of the computer fan and the rhythmic thumping of my own anxious heart. When he finally raised his eyes, the warmth I remembered from 15 years of checkups was gone, replaced by a clinical, razor-sharp focus. "Maggie," he started, his voice low, "your vitals are chaotic. Your blood pressure is dangerously low, yet your heart rate is spiking as if you just ran a marathon. None of this is consistent with the recovery protocol I prescribed." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I need you to be honest with me. Are you taking the medication exactly as directed? I take what I am given," I said, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. Dr. Mercer narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean, who prepares your medication for you?" "My daughter-in-law, Brianna," I answered. "She says I get confused. She locks the cabinet and brings me a pill every morning with water." The doctor's expression shifted instantly from concern to alarm. He stood up and opened the door, signaling to a nurse. "I need a stat toxicology screen and a quantitative blood level test for her beta blockers. Right now." The next 40 minutes were a blur of needles and plastic vials. I sat on the edge of the crinkling paper sheet, clutching my purse. I remembered the tissue-wrapped pill in my pocket. When Dr. Mercer returned, he was not alone. A clinical pharmacist from the hospital staff was with him. "We have the preliminary numbers," Dr. Mercer said, closing the door firmly behind them. "Maggie, listen to me. Your blood levels show a pattern we call sawtoothing. It means, on some days, you have double the dosage of your heart medication in your system. On other days, you have almost none. That explains the palpitations and the fainting spells. Someone is adjusting your intake to create symptoms." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I brought one," I stammered, reaching into my coat pocket with trembling fingers to produce the pill I had hidden. "I didn't take it this morning." The pharmacist took the pill with tweezers, examining it under a magnifying light. The coating is uneven, he murmured. It looks like it has been tampered with. 10 minutes later, the nurse returned with a printout, her face pale. She handed it to Dr. Mercer. He scanned the paper, and his jaw tightened. "It is not just the heart medication," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "We found traces of a sedative in your blood. It is a mild dissociative agent, usually used for severe insomnia or pre-anesthesia. In small doses, it causes memory loss, confusion, and muscle weakness." "They are making me crazy," I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "They are trying to prove I am unfit." "You are not crazy, Maggie. You are being poisoned," Dr. Mercer said firmly. He walked to the supply cabinet and pulled out a sealed bottle of my prescription. He handed it to me, gripping my hand. "Do not take anything she gives you. Hide this. Take only these. I am documenting everything as adverse reaction to unknown environmental factors, for now, to keep it off the main portal until we know more." I walked out of the clinic, feeling like the ground was made of glass. I had just reached my sedan when my phone buzzed against my hip. The screen flashed Evan. I took a breath and answered. "Hello, Mom? Where are you?" Evan's voice came through the speakers. It was tight, pitched slightly higher than usual. "Brianna went to bring you lunch and your room was empty. She is really worried." He did not sound worried. He sounded like a security guard who had realized a prisoner was missing during head count. "I just needed some air." "Evan." I lied, forcing my voice to remain steady. "I drove to the supermarket to pick up some of those ginger cookies I like." "You shouldn't be driving," he snapped, then softened his tone quickly. "Just come home." "Okay. We need to keep you safe. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, and hung up. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the heat waves rising off the asphalt. Suddenly, my phone chimed with a notification. It was not a text. It was an alert from my bank app. "Security alert, new login detected on your primary checking account. Device unknown iPad. Location near Savannah Medical District." My blood ran cold. They were not just waiting for me to die or go mad. While I was here trying to save my life, someone was already inside my financial life. I looked at the phone, then at the sealed bottle of pills on the passenger seat. This was not a family dispute. This was a heist, and I was the vault they were trying to crack open. Instead of going to the supermarket as I had told Evan, I drove straight to Hart's Pharmacy on Main Street. The bell above the door chimed, a familiar sound that usually brought comfort. But today it sounded like a warning. I walked straight to the consultation counter where Lena Hart, the head pharmacist, who had known me since my husband passed, was typing on a computer. "Maggie," she said, looking up with a start. "I didn't expect to see you. We sent your refill out last Thursday. That is what I need to ask you about," I said, leaning in close so the customers in the aisle could not hear. "Can you show me the delivery log?" Lena clicked a few keys and frowned. "Here it is. But this is strange. The address was changed 3 weeks ago. It was a temporary redirect authorized by a family caregiver. It went to a P.O. box in Savannah, then was marked as delivered to your home address 2 days later." 2 days, I repeated. That means it was out of the chain of custody for 48 hours. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo I had taken of the pills in my bathroom, zooming in on the glossy surface. Lena adjusted her glasses and squinted at the screen. "That coating is wrong. Our generic beta blockers have a matte finish. That looks glazed, like someone dipped them and dried them to seal something inside. She asked to see the physical bottle I had in my purse, the one Dr. Mercer had told me to hide. She inspected the foil seal. Look at the edge here. Maggie. The lot number matches our records, but there are micro-scorch marks on the plastic rim. Someone opened this with heat, tampered with the contents, and resealed it. It is clumsy work, if you know what to look for. A memory flashed in my mind. Brianna had brought home a sleek, electronic, smart pillbox the day she moved in. She had insisted on setting it up herself, claiming the technology was too tricky for me. I'll handle the settings. Mum, you just take what it gives you. I realized now that she had likely disabled the dispensing logs so I could never track when the machine was opened. I thanked Lena, my hands gripping the counter to keep from shaking, and drove home. The house was empty. Evan and Brianna were likely out looking for me. I went straight to the kitchen. I needed physical proof. I pulled the tall kitchen trash can out of its cabinet and began sifting through the layers of garbage, past the coffee grounds and vegetable peels. I found it. A crumpled plastic shipping envelope. The label had been ripped, but the return address was still legible: ValueMed Supply, a bulk medical distributor, not a pharmacy. And the recipient name was not Margaret Holston. It was simply B. Vale. I stood up, wiping my hands on a paper towel, and my hip bumped the breakfast island. I looked down at the gap between the granite countertop and the cabinet wood. Wedged deep in the dark crevice was a silver USB drive. It must have slid off the counter and been forgotten. I plugged it into my old laptop in the den. There was only one file on it. A PDF titled Petition for Emergency Guardianship. My breath hitched. I opened it. The petitioner was Evan Holston. I scrolled down, reading words that felt like knives. Mother exhibits advanced cognitive decline, unable to manage financial assets, immediate control required to prevent loss of estate. Attached to the legal form was a medical statement supporting the claim. It detailed episodes of confusion and aggression that never happened. I looked at the signature at the bottom. It was signed Brianna Vale, N.P., primary care provider. I sat back, stunned. Brianna had always been vague about her job. She claimed she worked in healthcare management or did consulting. She had never once examined me as a patient. She was impersonating a medical provider to sign off on my legal incapacitation. I grabbed my phone and dialed Darlene Kovich. Darlene was a retired court clerk who knew the system better than most judges. Maggie, she answered on the second ring. Everything okay, Darlene? If someone files for emergency guardianship against me, what happens? I asked, my voice trembling. There was a pause on the line. Did Evan file something I think he is about to? Or maybe he already has. Listen to me carefully, Darlene said, her tone dropping to a serious whisper. If they file that petition with a medical affidavit claiming you are a danger to your estate, the judge can grant a temporary order ex parte. That means without you even being there to defend yourself. Once that order is signed, they can freeze your bank accounts, your credit cards, and your assets within 24 to 48 hours. You won't be able to buy a gallon of milk, let alone hire a lawyer. I looked at the clock. If Evan was at the courthouse now, the clock was already ticking. They were not just trying to drug me. They were trying to erase me from my own life, and they were using the law to do it. The ambush happened at 9 a.m. I walked into the living room to find Evan and Brianna sitting on the sofa, flanking a man I had never seen before. He wore a suit that cost too much, and a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Mum, come sit down," Evan said, patting the armchair opposite them. "This is Mr. Sterling. We thought it was time to have a serious talk about protecting you. There are so many scams out there targeting people in your condition." I sat down, slipping my hand into my cardigan pocket and quietly pressing the record button on my phone. Mr. Sterling slid a thick stack of papers across the coffee table. "Mrs. Holston. These are standard power of attorney documents," Sterling said, his voice oily and practiced. "Given the recent medical concerns your family has raised, this will allow Evan to manage your accounts and ensure your bills are paid without stressing you out." I looked at the papers. They were not just for bill payments. They were durable, immediate, and irrevocable. "I manage my own bills just fine," I said calmly. Brianna leaned forward, her face a mask of pained sympathy. "Oh, Maggie, do you really? Just last week you forgot to lock the front door. And remember the stove incident? You left the burner on for 3 hours. We were terrified." My mind raced back. The unlocked door was on a Thursday. The stove incident was a Monday. Both were days I had taken the pill she gave me, the days I felt like my brain was filled with cotton. Those were specific days, I said, testing them. "See, she is confused even now," Brianna whispered to the lawyer. Loud enough for me to hear. "I am not confused," I said, my voice hardening. "I will not sign this." Evan stood up abruptly, his face flushing red. "Mom, stop being so stubborn. You are making this impossible. We are trying to help you, and you are acting like a child. You are selfish." You know that he paced the room, running a hand through his hair. "We don't even need you to agree, really. We just need the doctor to confirm you are senile. And it is done." The room went deadly silent. Evan froze, realizing he had said the quiet part out loud. I looked at him, then at Brianna. "Which doctor?" "Evan. The one sitting right there?" I turned my gaze to my daughter-in-law. "Brianna, you talk about your medical background all the time. Where exactly do you practice? What is your license number? I would love to look it up." Brianna blinked, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second before she let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Mom, you are getting agitated again? This is exactly what we mean. You get paranoid. Let's not talk about work. Let's talk about your safety." She was deflecting. She had no license. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out, shielding the screen. It was a push notification from my bank. "Alert request to change beneficiary on Roth IRA ending in 4492 has been submitted." My blood ran cold. They were not waiting for me to sign. Someone was accessing my accounts right now, probably from a laptop in the other room, while they kept me distracted here. I don't feel well," I said, standing up and feigning a sway. "I need to lie down. We can talk about this later." "Mum, wait." Evan started, but Brianna touched his arm. "Let her go," she said softly. "She'll be more cooperative when she is rested." I walked to my bedroom, locked the door, and braced a chair under the handle. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I dialed Dr. Mercer first. "I need the full toxicology report and a written statement that my symptoms are inconsistent with natural decline," I said the moment he picked up. "I need it now. Nolan, I will email it to your secure portal immediately," he replied. "Maggie, are you safe?" "Not yet." "Next." I called Lena Hart at the pharmacy. "Lena, send me the transaction log showing the unauthorized address change and the lot number discrepancy." Finally, I dialed the number Darlene had given me. Simone Reddick, the lawyer who ate predators for breakfast. "This is Simone." A sharp, raspy voice answered. I spilled everything. The pills, the fake doctor signature on the petition, the camera, the beneficiary change that just happened 5 minutes ago. I played her the recording of Evan saying they just needed a doctor to confirm I was senile. There was a long silence on the other end. "Mrs. Holston," Simone said, and I could practically hear her smiling. They made a mistake. They got greedy and they got sloppy. If they filed that petition, they opened a door they cannot close. "What do I do?" I asked, looking at the doorknob as if expecting it to turn. "You stay quiet. You let them think they are winning for 24 more hours," Simone commanded. "You are not just going to save yourself. Maggie, you are going to flip this entire table over on top of them. But you have to let me control the rhythm. Can you do that?" "I can," I whispered. "Good. I'm filing an emergency motion to stay the guardianship and freezing their access to your assets. By tomorrow morning, the only thing they will be controlling is their own panic." The roasted bean was chaotic, filled with the noise of espresso grinders and the chatter of college students, which was exactly why Simone Reddick had chosen it. It was the kind of noise that swallowed conversations whole, making recording devices useless. Simone did not look like the typical estate lawyer. She wore a sharp leather jacket and had eyes that seemed to dismantle a person and put them back together in seconds. "We have 3 fronts," Simone said, her voice low and precise, cutting through the ambient noise: medical, financial, legal. We do not just block them, Maggie. We entrap them. I slid my evidence across the scratched wooden table. My symptom diary, the photos of the glossy pills, the crumpled shipping label from the trash, and the USB drive containing the guardianship petition. Simone examined each item with a terrifying lack of surprise. She immediately pulled out her tablet and began drafting emails. "I am sending preservation letters to your bank and the delivery service right now," she said, her fingers flying across the screen. "If they delete a single log file after this timestamp, it is a felony. Now, tell me about the doctor." "Dr. Mercer is ready," I said. "He is willing to testify that my symptoms align with the introduction of a foreign sedative and beta blocker overdose, not natural cognitive decline." Simone nodded. "Good. We have more than just biology on our side. Your pharmacist, Lena, came through." She turned the tablet around to show me a document. "Lena traced the digital authorization used to pick up your meds 3 weeks ago. It was a digital proxy signature. It looked like yours, but the IP address where the request originated traces back to a residential network in Atlanta. Evan's house." I realized, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. He authorized it before they even moved in with me. "Exactly. Premeditation," Simone said. Then she slid a manila folder toward me. "But here is the motive. It is not just the savings account. Maggie. It is Harbor Vane Solutions." I stared at the name of the logistics company my late husband had built. "I still hold 40% of the voting shares. Evan always said it was sentimental value only." "He lied," Simone said bluntly. "I did a deep dive on Evan's employer. They are a boutique investment firm, and they are trying to force a buyout of Harbor Vane. The deal closes in 5 days. They need your signature to sell the company, or they need the signature of your legal guardian." The puzzle pieces snapped together so hard it almost hurt. They did not just want to control my money. They were selling my legacy. I am filing for an emergency temporary restraining order, Simone stated, closing the folder. It will freeze all changes to your accounts and legally bar them from administering your medication until an independent evaluation is done. But until the judge signs that paper tomorrow, you are in the lion's den. I can handle it, I said, though my hands were cold. Don't just handle it. Play it. Simone instructed. Go home. Be the confused, tired old woman they want you to be. Lower their guard. I drove home, parking my car at a slight angle in the driveway to suggest disorientation. When I walked inside, I let my shoulders slump and my steps shuffle. I complained of a headache and went straight to my room, leaving my purse minus the evidence carelessly on the hallway table. Once inside my bathroom, I initiated the next phase of the plan. Dr. Mercer had given me a sealed bottle from the hospital pharmacy. It was a bait bottle. The pills inside looked exactly like my heart medication, but they were harmless sugar pills coated in a specialized powder that was invisible to the naked eye, but glowed bright neon under UV light. I unlocked the cabinet Brianna had accidentally left the key on the counter earlier, likely to test me, and swapped the bottles. I placed the bait bottle on the shelf, angling it so the label faced the hidden camera in the living room. That evening, dinner was a quiet affair. Evan cut his roast chicken with precise, aggressive strokes. Brianna watched me over the rim of her wine glass, her eyes scanning my face for signs of the sedative she thought I had ingested. You seem a little better tonight. Mum, Evan said, though his tone suggested disappointment. I am just very tired. Evan, I murmured, letting my hand tremble as I reached for my water. I think I might just sign those papers tomorrow. I don't have the energy to fight anymore. Evan and Brianna exchanged a look. It was a look of victory. They thought the game was over. They thought I was a fading relic, ready to be packed away in a nursing home while they cashed out my life's work. I took a bite of my food and chewed slowly. Enjoy it, I thought. If you want to turn me into an incapacitated invalid, I will show you just how terrifyingly awake a 58-year-old woman can be. The house was silent, but the air felt heavy, charged with the static of unseen threats. I was sitting in the dark of my bedroom when my phone vibrated. It was Simone. I answered immediately, keeping my voice to a whisper. They accepted the filing. Maggie, Simone said, her voice tight. The court has scheduled an emergency hearing for 48 hours from now, but do not panic. I have already lodged our objection and attached Dr. Mercer's preliminary statement. They will not be walking into a coronation. They are walking into a war. I hung up and crept out into the hallway. My heart was thumping against my ribs. I needed to check the bait. I moved silently to the kitchen, clutching the small UV flashlight Dr. Mercer had given me. I did not go to the cabinet first. I went to the trash. I pulled out the latex gloves I had seen Brianna discard earlier that evening after organizing the bathroom. I shone the purple light on them. The fingertips glowed with a bright, neon green smear, the marker powder from the bait bottle. She had opened it, and she had worn gloves to do it. This was not the act of a concerned daughter-in-law. It was the protocol of a criminal covering her tracks. Back in my room, my laptop pinged with a secure email from Dr. Mercer. It was the full toxicology breakdown. I scanned the dense medical jargon until I found the summary, trace amounts of scopolamine detected. It was a drug used to treat motion sickness, but in the wrong dosage. It caused compliance, confusion, and short-term amnesia. It was often called the zombie drug in crime novels. I felt sick. They were not just making me woozy, they were chemically stripping away my free will. A moment later, a video call request popped up from Simone, when I accepted. A young man with intense eyes appeared next to her on the screen. "This is Malik Granger," Simone introduced him. "He has been scrubbing your digital footprint, Mrs. Halston." "I looked at your phone's background activity," Malik said, speaking fast. "You have an app called Wellness Tracker installed. It has root permissions to access your banking apps and read your texts. It was installed last Tuesday." "Tuesday," I whispered. That was the day Brianna offered to update my operating system because she said it was running slow. "It is a spyware Trojan," Malik confirmed. "And I traced the IP addresses for the recent bank logins. They are coming from the router in your son's home office." But here is the kicker. One login happened yesterday afternoon from a public Wi-Fi network at the Savannah Medical Center parking lot. I froze. She was waiting in the car while I was getting my blood drawn. She was draining my accounts while I was inside trying to find out why I was dying. Simone leaned closer to the camera. We dug into Brianna too. It is a ghost story. Maggie. Her resume is full of holes. The university she claims to have attended has no record of her graduation. And that nursing provider number she used on the medical affidavit. It belongs to a retired orthopedic nurse in Ohio. A memory flashed in my mind, sharp and sudden. A week ago, Brianna had slid a paper across the breakfast table. It's just a standard HIPAA form. "Mom, so I can pick up your prescriptions without hassle." I had almost signed it. If I had, she would have had legal authority to purge my medical history and rewrite the narrative of my treatment. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Darlene. The message was short, but it sucked the air out of the room. "Read the full petition." "Maggie, Evan didn't just say you're confused. He claims you physically attacked Brianna last week during a psychotic episode." I dropped the phone on the bed. They were not just painting me as incompetent. They were painting me as violent, a danger to myself and others. That was the golden ticket for immediate, restrictive guardianship. I walked to the mirror and looked at my reflection. My face was pale, lined with exhaustion, but my eyes were clear. I thought about the glowing fingerprints on the gloves. I thought about the fake nurse in the other room sleeping next to my son. They don't just want the money. I whispered to the empty room. They want to destroy me so completely that no one will ever believe a word I say again. I took a deep breath, smoothing down my hair. I would not let them see me crumble. If they wanted a villain, I would not give them one. But if they wanted a victim, they were about to be very disappointed. I was done hiding. It was time to hunt. Simone chose the first move of the morning with surgical precision. Before the banks even opened their doors, her legal team had served notice to every financial institution holding my assets. The directive was absolute. Any transaction over $100 required my physical presence and a wet signature witnessed by a notary. The digital convenience Evan had relied on to siphon my funds was instantly severed. Back at the house, Malik and I were building a fortress. We swapped the SIM card in my phone to cut off the cloning device Brianna had likely used. We reset every password to a random string of 20 characters. Malik installed a passive logging script on the home network. "We are not locking them out completely," Malik explained, his fingers dancing over his keyboard. "We are letting them knock on the door so we can record exactly which key they try to use." At the pharmacy, Lena Hart was escalating the war on her front. She filed a formal report with the State Board of Pharmacy, citing suspected diversion and adulteration of prescription narcotics within my household supply chain. It was a bureaucratic grenade that would trigger an automatic investigation. Then came the knock on the door that Evan and Brianna never expected. It was not a friend. It was a process server accompanied by a sheriff's deputy. Simone had secured an emergency temporary restraining order removing them from the premises, citing imminent risk of medical interference. "You are kicking us out," Evan shouted, his face twisting into a mask of disbelief as he stood on the porch. "Mom, tell them to stop. This is insane. We are the only ones taking care of you." I stood behind the screen door, my arms crossed. I did not say a word. I just watched as Brianna threw clothes into a suitcase, her eyes cold and hard as flint. She did not look like a heartbroken caregiver. She looked like an employee who had been fired before she could steal the office supplies. But Evan was quick to adapt. By noon, the narrative in the neighborhood had shifted. He went to the Millers and the Hendersons, playing the weeping son. He told them I was suffering from severe paranoia induced by painkiller addiction. He claimed I was hallucinating plots against me. When I went to the mailbox later that afternoon, Susan Miller turned her back on me and hurried inside. I was isolated. I was the crazy old woman in the big house, just as they had planned. I did not go out to defend myself. I sat at my dining table and compiled my truth package. I organized the toxicology report, the photos of the resealed foil, the log of the unauthorized bank access, and my handwritten diary. I was building a bomb, and I would only detonate it when they were standing right on top of it. Then Malik called out from the den, "Mrs. Holston, you need to see this." He had managed to access a backup of Evan's laptop through the family iCloud account that Evan had forgotten to decouple from the living room computer. "He sent an email this morning at 6, Malik said, pointing to the screen, to a broker at Highland Capital. I leaned in and read the subject line, Harbour Vane Acquisition Timeline. The body of the email was chillingly efficient. The obstruction will be cleared by Friday. Once the guardianship is finalized and Mother is confirmed incapacitated, we can execute the sale of her shares. I can guarantee closing within 10 days. 10 days. I whispered. "He has a deadline. There is an attachment," Malik said. He clicked on a file named Draft Care Agreement. I read the document, and my stomach turned. It was a contract between Evan and Brianna. It stipulated a monthly salary for Brianna of $8,000 for specialized in-home care, to be paid from my estate. But the kicker was the performance bonus, a lump sum of $50,000 payable upon the successful granting of permanent guardianship. She was not doing this for love. She was not even doing it just for Evan. She was a hired gun working on commission. I took a photo of the screen and sent it to Simone. Her reply came 3 minutes later. She had forwarded the email to Evan's lawyer with a single question attached. "Is your client petitioning for guardianship because he wants to care for his mother, or because he needs her signature to sell her out?" The emergency hearing was held in a small, windowless conference room at the courthouse, but the tension made it feel like a gladiator arena. Evan sat on the opposite side of the mahogany table, looking devastated. He wore a rumpled shirt, his hair slightly messy, perfecting the image of a son who had not slept in days out of worry. Next to him, Brianna was a masterclass in victimhood. She kept her head down, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue, looking for all the world like a woman pushed to the brink by a tyrant mother-in-law. "Your Honor," Evan's lawyer began, his voice dripping with false solemnity. "We are simply asking for temporary emergency powers to ensure Mrs. Halston takes her medication. She is confused. She is paranoid. And frankly, she is a danger to herself." Simone did not even look up from her notes. "We object to the characterization of my client as confused," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "And we request permission to present the toxicology findings from Dr. Nolan Mercer immediately." The judge, a stern woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, nodded. "Proceed." Dr. Mercer stood up. He did not look at Evan. He looked straight at the judge. "Your Honor, Margaret Halston's blood work shows wild fluctuations in beta-blocker levels that are inconsistent with missed doses. If she simply forgot a pill, the levels would drop gradually. Instead, we see spikes of double dosage followed by near zero levels. This is a sawtooth pattern. It is not natural. It is engineered." Evan jumped in, his voice shaking. "She messes up her own pills. I have seen her drop them. I have seen her take 2 because she forgot she took the first one. And did she also accidentally ingest scopolamine?" "Doctor?" Mercer asked, his tone icy. "Because we found traces of a dissociative sedative in her system. A drug not prescribed to her, but one that causes the exact compliance and confusion you claim she suffers from." The room went silent. Evan's lawyer shifted in his seat. "That is speculative. She could have taken an over-the-counter sleep aid." "We also have the financial logs," Simone interrupted, sliding a stack of papers toward the judge, while Mrs. Halston was at the clinic having her blood drawn to save her life. Her bank accounts were being accessed. The IP address traces back to the public Wi-Fi in the clinic parking lot, and the device ID matches a tablet registered to Brianna Vale. The judge picked up the papers, her eyebrows knitting together. The narrative was shifting. This was no longer a family dispute. It was starting to look like a heist. Brianna looked up, her face flushing. "She hates me," she blurted out, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "She has always hated me. She is making this up to ruin Evan's marriage. She is paranoid." Simone turned her chair to face Brianna directly. "Ms. Vale, since we are discussing credibility, perhaps you can clarify your medical background. You signed an affidavit as a medical provider. What is your license number again?" "The one on the form belongs to a retired nurse in Ohio." Brianna froze. Sweat began to bead on her forehead. I transferred my license. The paperwork is pending. I was just trying to help." "Pending paperwork does not allow you to diagnose a patient for a legal petition," Simone said dryly. Then she pulled out a photo. It showed the bait pill bottle glowing under black light, and next to it, the latex gloves from the trash glowing with the same neon smear. "And did you also try to help by opening a sealed bottle of medication with latex gloves at 2 a.m? Brianna's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked at the photo, then at Evan, her eyes wide with panic. She forced a stiff, terrifying smile, trying to maintain her composure, but the cracks were showing. Evan slammed his hand on the table, startling everyone. "This is ridiculous. She is twisting everything. Mom isn't the victim here." "She attacked Brianna last week. She threw a vase at her. She is violent. It was a desperate lie. A Hail Mary throw to paint me as dangerous." Simone calmly tapped her phone screen. "I have a recording from the night before the petition was filed. This is Mr. Halston speaking to his mother." Evan's voice filled the room. clear, and damning. We don't even need you to agree, really. We just need the doctor to confirm you are senile, and it is done. The silence that followed was absolute. The judge set the papers down and took off her glasses. She looked at Evan with an expression of pure distaste. This hearing is adjourned. The judge ruled, her gavel coming down with a finality that made Evan flinch. I am denying the emergency guardianship petition. Furthermore, I am ordering an immediate independent investigation into these allegations of financial and medical abuse. Mr. and Mrs. Holston, you are hereby barred from contacting Margaret Holston or accessing any of her assets until further notice. The bailiff moved to stand between us. Evan slumped in his chair, defeated. I stood up. Feeling a surge of relief so strong my knees almost buckled, Simone put a hand on my shoulder to steady me. We walked out of the conference room. As I passed Brianna, she leaned in. She did not look defeated anymore. Her eyes were hard, dark stones. She grabbed my wrist, her grip painfully tight for just a second before she let go, and whispered so softly only I could hear, "You think you won, don't you? But you don't even know what you signed 3 months ago." I froze in the middle of the hallway. The relief evaporated. I watched her walk away, her heels clicking on the linoleum, and I realized with a sick feeling in my gut that the courtroom was just the opening battle. I had missed something big. The threat Brianna had whispered in the hallway gnawed at me, but Simone Reddick did not deal in fear. She dealt in paper trails. For the next 6 hours, we turned my dining room into a war room. We scrutinized every single piece of paper I had signed in the last 4 months. "Here," Malik said, his finger hovering over a scanned document on his tablet. "This looks like a standard receipt for that vitamin sample pack you got in the mail back in September. But look at the bottom." I squinted at the paper. It was a verification of receipt for a free trial of calcium supplements. I remembered signing it at the kitchen counter while Brianna made tea. "It has a QR code instead of a barcode," Malik explained. "And when I scan it, it doesn't go to a vitamin company. It executes a digital handshake authorizing a third-party account to manage your prescriptions," Malik typed furiously, bypassing the front-end security to see who controlled the account. "The profile is under your name, Maggie. But the password recovery email, it is b.vil.privateegmail.com." My stomach churned. She tricked me into handing over my medical autonomy for a bottle of free vitamins. "It gets worse," Malik said, pulling up a chain of purchase orders. "She didn't just tamper with your existing pills. She used this account to order substitute compounds from an unregulated supplier overseas. She was buying look-alike pills, sugar pills mixed with low-dose sedatives and swapping them into your pharmacy bottles. It was an assembly line of poison, and you signed the permission slip." Simone threw a thick stack of stapled papers onto the table. Her face was grim. "And here is why. I pulled the corporate filings for the entity trying to buy your Harbour Vane shares. It is not an outside investment firm. It is a shell company registered in Delaware. The primary beneficiary is Evan Holston. He is buying my company with what money I asked, though I already suspected the answer." "With your money," Simone replied cold. "The plan was to declare you incapacitated, use his guardianship to authorize the sale of your shares to his own fund at a rock-bottom price, and then resell the assets for millions. He was going to strip mine your life." Just then, Simone's encrypted messaging app chimed. She frowned, checking the screen. Unknown number. They sent a file. She opened it, and her eyes widened. Well, it seems Brianna has made enemies before. The message was from a woman named Kendra Shaw. The text was short. I saw the news about the court hearing. Brianna Vale did the exact same thing to a retired pilot in Florida 5 years ago. He died of a stroke before anyone caught on. Do not let her walk away. She is a predator. Kendra had attached a trove of documents, old employment records where Brianna used a stolen social security number, a police report from Miami that had been buried, citing an investigation into medical impersonation that was dropped due to lack of evidence. She wasn't just a greedy daughter-in-law. She was a professional black widow who used bureaucracy instead of arsenic. We have them, I said, my hands shaking, not from fear, but from rage. Not yet. Simone warned. We need them to panic. The panic started an hour later. Evan, desperate to regain control of the narrative, pulled a stunt. I heard the commotion outside and looked through the blinds. A news van was parked on the street, and Evan was standing at my gate with a cameraman, looking distraught. I just want to see my mother. He yelled for the cameras. These lawyers are holding her hostage. She is sick. Simone did not let me go out. Instead, she walked out onto the porch, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers she had called earlier to enforce the restraining order. Mr. Halston Simone's voice boomed, drowning out his performance. You are in violation of a court order prohibiting contact with the plaintiff. Officers, remove him from the property. The cameras caught everything. They caught the moment Evan's grieving son mask slipped, replaced by a snarl of entitlement. They caught the police escorting him away like a common trespasser. The image of the devoted family man cracked instantly on live television. Inside the house. Malik shouted from the kitchen. She took the bait. Brianna is online. We rushed to his screen. Brianna, likely terrified by the exposure, and Kendra's emerging shadow, was trying to scrub the evidence. Malik's screen mirrored hers in real time. We watched as she logged into the Shadow medical portal and frantically hit delete on the order history and the digital authorization logs. She thinks she is erasing it, Malik said, grinning as he tapped a key. But I am recording every keystroke. She is destroying evidence during an active investigation. That is obstruction of justice. And it proves she knows exactly what those logs contain. We watched until she logged off, believing she was safe. The room fell silent. We had the toxicology report. We had the financial trail. We had the history of fraud from Kendra. And now, we had digital proof of a cover-up. Simone turned to me. Her expression was serious, devoid of triumph. We have enough to bury them in court. Maggie, we can send them to prison for fraud and elder abuse, she said. But a trial takes months. They will lie. They will appeal. And they will drag your name through the mud every single day. So what do we do? I asked. Simone leaned in, her eyes hard. We end it tomorrow. We don't just win the case. We force a public confession so undeniable that they can never open their mouths again. We have enough to hurt them. But to end this truly, you need a killing blow so they can never lie again. How we set one last trap. Simone said, and this time, you have to be the bait. The trap was set for 10 in the morning at Dr. Mercer's clinic. To the untrained eye, it looked like a standard follow-up appointment, but the room was crowded with silent observers. A pharmaceutical investigator stood by the window. A representative from the bank sat in the corner with a briefcase, and a state medical board inspector leaned against the far wall. I had sent Evan a single text message 2 hours earlier. "You can come with Brianna. I want to make peace." They walked in with the confidence of predators who thought the prey had finally stopped running. Evan looked relieved, already calculating his payout, while Brianna wore her mask of professional concern. She went straight into her routine, pulling a small pillbox from her purse. "I brought your morning dose." "Mum," Brianna said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "You missed it earlier. We need to keep your heart steady." She held out the blue pill and a cup of water. I did not reach for it. Instead, I nodded to the clinical pharmacist standing next to Dr. Mercer. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "I would like him to take it." Brianna's hand faltered. "What, Mom?" "Don't be difficult. It is just your beta blocker." I took the pill from her palm and handed it directly to the pharmacist. He immediately dropped it into a rapid test reagent vial he had prepared on the counter. The clear liquid turned a violent, murky purple within seconds. "Positive for scopolamine and crushed benzodiazepines," the pharmacist announced to the room. "This is not a heart medication. This is a chemical restraint cocktail." Brianna froze. Her eyes darted around the room, realizing too late that the doors were closed. The state inspector stepped forward. "Ms. Vale, I need to see your nursing credentials immediately. I don't have them on me," she stammered, backing away. "That is fine. We ran the license number you provided on the affidavit," the inspector said, holding up a tablet. The screen flashed a bright red invalid. "The number belongs to a 70-year-old woman in Ohio. You are practicing without a license and impersonating a medical professional. That is a felony." Brianna stood there, frozen in place, unable to speak. "And we are not done," Malik said from the corner. He tapped a key on his laptop, and the large monitor on the wall flickered to life. It displayed a timeline of authorized logins to the medical portal, followed by the video footage from my hallway camera. It clearly showed Brianna creeping to the medicine cabinet at 3 a.m, unlocking it with a key she claimed she did not have, and swapping the bottles. Evan tried to distance himself, stepping away from his wife. I had no idea. She told me she was a nurse. I am a victim here too. She tricked me. "Stop talking." "Evan," Simone said, stepping forward with a document in her hand. "We know about the deal." She projected an email onto the screen. It was the draft Evan had sent to the broker. "Once mother is confirmed incapacitated, we close the Harbour Vane deal." Below, it was the care agreement offering Brianna a $50,000 bonus upon the success of the guardianship. "You were not tricked," Simone said coldly. "You hired a hitman. You just chose one who used pills instead of a gun." Before Evan could invent another lie, the door opened. Kendra Shaw walked in. Brianna let out a small, strangled sound. "Kendra? I swore an affidavit this morning." "Brianna," Kendra said, her voice shaking with anger. "I told them about the pilot in Florida. I told them about the text messages where you bragged that making them senile is easier than murder. It is over." 2 police officers entered the room. The sound of Velcro and metal filled the silence as they cuffed Brianna's hands behind her back. She was charged on the spot with medical impersonation, reckless endangerment, and fraud. Evan was read his rights regarding conspiracy to commit grand larceny. As they were led toward the door, I looked at them. I did not cry. I did not scream. I felt lighter than I had in months. "I am not losing my mind," I said, my voice cutting through the room. I was just being gaslit by the two people who were supposed to protect me. At the threshold. Doctor. Mercer held up the toxicology report with the official seal. He looked Brianna in the eye. How do you explain the poison in her blood? Ms. Vale. Brianna opened her mouth, her face pale and wet with sweat, but no sound came out. She had no scripts left to read. I turned my back on them and walked out of the clinic with Simone. Behind me, the heavy door clicked shut, sealing my nightmare in the past. I took a deep breath of the fresh air outside. It tasted like freedom. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It was a terrifying journey, but I hope it reminds you to always trust your gut, even when those closest to you try to make you doubt yourself. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts on the ending. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, smash that like button, and hit the hype button to help this story reach even more people. Stay safe, everyone.